Hello, my name's Chris Brooks. I'm with Ventec Life Systems, the creator of VOCSN, which is the first and only multi-function ventilator. VOCSN, V-O-C-S-N, stands for ventilator, oxygen, cough, suction, and nebulizer. VOCSN literally combines a critical care ventilator, 6 liter per minute equivalent oxygen concentrator, cough assist at the touch of a button, hospital-grade suction, and a high-performance nebulizer in this single 18-pound device. VOCSN works from hospital to home for pediatric patients 5 kilograms and above and is completely customizable to the patient. The patient can get all 5 therapies or just the mix of therapies the patient needs. So the VOCSN multifunction ventilator combines 5 therapies in one. It's the first and only device to even combine 2 of these 5 therapies together. Traditionally, for ventilator patients, they need a ventilator plus 1, 2, 3, or up to 5 different devices. VOCSN combines all of that in 18 pounds. You have up to 9 hours of battery life. You have an internal battery, and on either side you have 2 removable, hot swappable batteries, giving you up to 9 hours of battery life on ventilation only. You get up to 6 hours of battery life with the ventilator and oxygen concentrator running together, and anywhere from 3 to 4 hours of battery life if you have heavy rotation of all 5 therapies. VOCSN, unlike the traditional devices today, works much like your cell phone. So rather than a bunch of complicated operating systems, different knobs and settings, you now can manage everything on this one simple screen. We like to say rather than managing a wall full of devices, you can now manage this touchscreen with 5 different icons. To get into any of the therapy settings, you simply hit the icon appropriate for that setting. So I'm going to show you the ventilator. I simply hit V for ventilation, and I'm now in my ventilation settings. I have 3 presets for my ventilation. In this case, I have primary, day, and mobile. I can name these and set these however I want. VOCSN works for non-invasive ventilation, so that could be a mask or nasal pillows. It also works for invasive ventilation with a trach. It also works for mouthpiece ventilation. All of the modes and settings that you're used to using on any other ventilator, VOCSN can also do those settings. And VOCSN is the only home care ventilator that's going to meet that critical care standard for safety and accuracy, meaning that the patient is going to get that safe and comfortable ventilation throughout any sort of temperature fluctuations or shock and vibe that the ventilator may experience. To make any settings changes at all, I simply go to Settings and Alarms, and all of my settings and alarms are on this one screen. I can scroll down with the easy touch screen and I can see all of my ventilation settings. I can also see all of my alarm parameters. To make any changes at all, I simply select my breath rate, for instance. I'm at 10 breaths per minute. I'm going to hit Edit. I'm going to change that to 12 and hit Accept. I've now changed my breath rate. It works that way to make any settings changes throughout the entire device across all 5 therapies. Rather than navigating a labyrinth of different submenus, it's now all managed in one streamlined menu. When in doubt, exit out. There's always an exit button. I can exit back to my ventilation screen and exit one more time, and I can exit back out to my therapy screen. Moving on to the second therapy, VOCSN has an onboard oxygen concentrator. I'm going to go ahead and hit the O for oxygen. You're going to see 3 presets. In this case, I haven't named them at all. So it's simply preset 1, preset 2, and preset 3. VOCSN has 3 sources of oxygen. We have external high pressure, external low pressure oxygen, and also the internal oxygen concentrator. VOCSN has the capability of doing up to 6 liters equivalent, or 40% FiO2 in the average adult male. I'm going to go ahead and turn on preset number 1, which I have set to my 6 liters equivalent on my internal concentrator. I'm going to press start, and the first thing you notice is that I'm not yelling at you. VOCSN is significantly quieter than any other stationary or portable concentrator out there today. So what's happening right now is we're delivering oxygen through what we call our oxygen direct system. So the internal oxygen concentrator is creating that pure oxygen, delivering that oxygen through our oxygen direct tube right here. That tube, that oxygen tube, actually runs inside the circuit. You can actually see the tubing inside the circuit delivering that oxygen past the leak or the exhalation valve in the circuit in the first 2/3 of every inspiratory breath that this patient takes. That ensures that the oxygen is getting absorbed deep into the lungs where the patient needs it the most, rather than filling up the dead space in the throat and mouth. So it's a much more efficient use of the oxygen that the concentrator is making, a much more effective delivery for our patient with that oxygen direct system. I'm going to go ahead and stop oxygen by simply pressing the button. VOCSN's always going to walk me through what's going on. In this case, it serves me up a pop-up that says, press OK to stop oxygen therapy. I want to confirm that I want to do that. I'm simply going to hit OK, and you hear the oxygen concentrator turn off. Ventilation is always going on in the background. When in doubt, exit out, and I'm back to my main therapy screen. The third therapy of VOCSN I can use using the same circuit. So the same circuit that I use for ventilation, the same circuit that I use for oxygen, I can now also do cough therapy. Now, cough therapy you may or may not be familiar with, but you and I, when we get sick, we get secretions and we cough. It's a very natural and effective way of clearing those secretions and keeping our airways free and clear of infection. Cough therapy, or mechanical insufflation-exsufflation, is simply a big flow of air in, a quick rapid change flow of air out, mimicking that cough and bringing those secretions up. Instead of doing deep suctioning, it's a more natural and effective way of clearing those secretions. Cough therapy traditionally is a separate device requiring you to disconnect from your life support ventilator, which creates a lot of anxiety, connect to the cough assist, do the cough maneuver, then perhaps do suction, and then hopefully somebody remembers to reconnect you back to the ventilator. That could take anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. That could require up to 2 different caregivers to help you out, and requires multiple different devices and attachments to the patient. In this case, we have touch button cough. One device using that same circuit, and we have uninterrupted ventilation for the VOCSN user. So I'm going to simply hit C. And again, this looks very familiar. 3 simple presets. In this case, I've named it low, medium, and high. I've set it for a big cough or a small cough. I can set all of my settings in the settings just like you saw with ventilation. And in this case, I can literally do cough with the touch of a button. We call it touch button cough. I'm going to go ahead and grab my lung here. This is mimicking my VOCSN user. You can see that currently my patient is breathing. And simply with the touch of a button, without disconnecting the circuit, you're going to see that we go from a V to a C. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start. It's going to find a natural point in the patient's breath. It's then going to do, in this case, I have it set for 3 cough cycles. We're going to do our 3rd cough cycle, and then you'll see that we go right back to a V. Uninterrupted ventilation, no need to disconnect the circuit, cough at the touch of a button. A lot more comfortable for the patient, a lot more convenient for the caregiver. That literally took seconds as opposed to minutes, and I only had to manage 1 device. When in doubt, exit out, go back to my therapy screen, and I can move on to my 4th therapy, suction. Simply hit S for suction. And we like to say we have hospital-grade suction. What does that mean? That means that we have consistent high flows like what you would see in an in-wall hospital suction system. Anyone who's used portable suction knows that not only is it very loud, but it often doesn't do a great job at removing those secretions. Here, we have our travel suction canister that's going to give you the ability to do suction wherever you are. This suction canister is actually discreetly tinted so that I can see when it's full, but I don't actually see all the beautiful colors of my secretions. And I'm going to go ahead and hit start. I can adjust my vacuum pressure up or down. I'm going to go ahead and hit start. And again, the first thing you notice is that I'm not yelling at you. Significantly quieter than any other portable suction. If you think about portable suction today, it's banging, it's making a ton of noise, it's one piston going back and forth, trying as hard as it can to remove those secretions, but you're actually releasing those secretions all the way up. Here we have a very consistent 3-piston compressor, providing that consistent high flow like what you would get with an in-wall hospital suction, but with you at all times. So you never have to make the decision now when you leave the house or when you're not next to the bed, whether or not you're going to bring that additional piece of equipment with you, whether you're going to bring that suction or hope that you don't need to clear any secretions. You now have all of that with you at all times. We have our standard 1/4-inch suction tubing, and you can actually see here as I press and hold, and you can see as I hold my tubing, it's not fluctuating, but it's staying consistently at where I have it set, which is at 290. I can actually turn this vacuum pressure up. VOCSN's going to warn me above 300, hey, you're about to go into the turbocharge. Are you sure you want to do that? I'm going to go ahead and hit yes. We like to say what you set is what you get with VOCSN. Unlike your portable suction today, you crank it all the way up. You hope that it works. With VOCSN, you can really dial in what those suction pressures look like. I'm going to go ahead and crank this all the way up, say to 380. And you can see as I press and hold, the suction is very strong and it's consistent throughout the suction process. So consistent high flows, hospital-grade suction with you at all times. Go ahead and hit stop. It's going to turn off my suction. When in doubt, exit out, and back to my therapy screen. Our final therapy is our high-performance nebulizer. Simply hit N for nebulizer. You can see two things. First, I can set a time duration for my nebulizer treatment. So I can set this to, say, 10 minutes. It was originally at 15. And I'm going to use my typical 6 liter per minute neb cup. This is actually going to go in line with my circuit, proximal to my patient. So this would go just like that. If you think about your nebulizer today, you have your ventilator, and then you have a separate device, your nebulizer, which is introducing a whole bunch of additional flow to the patient. That's very uncomfortable for the patient. They're already getting their ventilation breath. They now have the nebulizer. Creates a very high pressure, uncomfortable feeling. Some ventilators today have a nebulizer mode. You would set the ventilator on nebulizer mode. All that is doing is suppressing all of the alarms so that you're not getting consistent high pressure alarms throughout the duration of the nebulizer treatment. But that does nothing to solve for the comfortability of the patient. With VOCSN, because we have one integrated system, one of the benefits of integrated care is that the ventilator can compensate for the additional flow coming from the nebulizer. So if I go ahead and hit start, you're going to see the V and the N up in my status bar, showing me that the ventilator is compensating for the additional flow coming from my nebulizer. So that's much more comfortable for the patient, and also if the patient has any high pressure alarms during the nebulizer event, VOCSN will still give you a high pressure alarm and allow you to know that you might need to pause your nebulization treatment, do suction, do cough, clear that secretion or wherever that blockage may be, and then resume your nebulization. So I'm going to go ahead and hit stop and prematurely end this, and my nebulizer will shut down. When in doubt, exit out, and I'm back to my therapy screen. Those are the 5 therapies with VOCSN, completely customizable to the patient. So recognizing that not all patients will need all 5 therapies. Some patients might need ventilator and cough. Some patients might start off with just ventilator and suction. You can actually gray out these therapies at any given time, depending upon what the patient is using. I have all of my monitors. All of the monitors that you're used to seeing, I can actually customize these left to right, top to bottom to make it very easy for me as a caregiver to chart. I can also tab down and see all of my patient settings. So I like to say, what have I set for my patient? Tab back up to my monitors. What am I getting with my patient? Very accurate waveforms. So as I play with the lung here, you can see the very responsive waveforms on the screen. And then finally, if I go into my menu and into my logs, and I click on my event logs, I can see everything that happened with this patient. So we talk about the benefits of integrated care. It's not just that everything is small and compact. You now have the ability to track every single therapy across all 5 therapies, not just ventilation, to see what happened with my patient. So I could walk right up to this patient. I can see that we changed our breath rate from 10 to 12, that we started and stopped oxygen, that we did a cough therapy, we did a low cough, and we did 3 cough cycles that lasted a grand total of 9 seconds as opposed to the 15 minutes that one cough therapy might have taken with traditional devices. I can also see that we started and stopped suction and our nebulizer, that we changed our nebulizer duration, etc. I can stick a USB in the back of VOCSN. I can export those events. I can download those events, take them to my doctor's appointment, or my doctor may be able to even remotely access these events ahead of my appointment. Or my DME respiratory therapist really gives you insight into what's going on across all 5 therapies, both usage as well as settings. When in doubt, exit back out to my menu screen. If I go to my home screen, these are the first 3 monitors in my monitors tab. So I can customize whatever I see here to be the 3 monitors that I care the most about when I want to look at VOCSN across the room. Now, when VOCSN was launched 2.5 years ago, it was cleared by the FDA. We spent the first year working in long-term care facilities, working with adult patients who could give us feedback in an environment that had 24/7 clinical care without the red tape of a hospital, so that we can learn. VOCSN was developed with patients and caregivers in mind, and it was developed by and for patients and caregivers. We asked them, what do you like about traditional equipment today? What don't you like? What are the pain points? How can we make it better? We created VOCSN, got it FDA cleared, but then we knew that a device performs differently in the lab than it does in real life. So we spent that first year working in long-term care facilities, watching patients and caregivers use the device to see where they got confused, what features we needed to add. Little things that make a big difference, such as night mode. They said, hey, we love your big, beautiful, bright touchscreen. It's very easy to use, but when I'm trying to sleep at night, it really is a lot of light in my face. Can you dim the screen? Well, on our home screen, you can now hit night mode and it dims the screen. If I hit that again, turns it back on. We like to say you have to go home to turn the lights on, but it's the little things that make a big difference in the day-to-day usage of VOCSN. Since that time, we came out of that very controlled rollout in the long-term care facilities. We're now using VOCSN across the country and also approved in Japan, working with a wide variety of patients in a variety of different care environments. VOCSN is simple, mobile, and care-changing.